Welcome to the darkness you can't escape. Every scream, every shadow is real here. Let the fear begin.
Rain hammered the cracked roof of Silent Pine Lodge as Ethan Ward pushed open the swollen wooden door, and the air inside hugged him like something cold and alive. He shook the water from his jacket and scanned the dim lobby, noticing that the flickering bulb above him made long, unnatural shadows crawl up the walls. The front desk stood abandoned except for an old guest book left open to a page dated October 13th, 1987. Ethan called out for anyone working there, but the building absorbed his voice like thick fabric, swallowing the echo before it could return. He moved down the hallway, stepping carefully as the floorboards groaned beneath him as if the house disliked every ounce of his weight. A cold draft followed him, brushing against his neck like fingertips tracing his skin. Opening the nearest room, he found a rocking chair moving gently back and forth, though the air was still and heavy like a stagnant grave. His breath fogged instantly, the temperature dropping to a freezing bite, and he felt a presence settle behind him as if someone leaned over his shoulder. When he spun around, nothing stood there except muddy footprints leading toward the corner of the room. The footprints stopped in an unlit patch of darkness, and when Ethan pointed his phone's flashlight toward it, he found an old trunk half open and trembling slightly. Inside lay a long black coat soaked as if recently worn in the storm, and from its pocket slipped a photograph that fluttered to the floor like a dead leaf. In the photograph, the same rocking chair sat in the room, but this time with a woman in it, her face blurred violently as if scraped out with fingernails. As Ethan reached for the photograph, a cold whisper brushed directly against his ear, close enough to freeze the side of his neck. He jerked backward, heart racing, but the room remained empty, except for the chair that now rocked faster, creaking like bones grinding together. The trunk suddenly slammed shut with a vicious thud, dust exploding upward like a breath from something buried. The storm outside grew louder, rattling the old windows and making the lights flicker harder. Dimming as though a giant hand squeezed the building's power, Ethan hurried into the hallway. But it seemed longer than before, stretching unnaturally like an impossible tunnel. Door after door slammed shut behind him, each bang echoing like gunshots chasing him forward. One door at the far end creaked open by itself, revealing nothing but a thick curtain of darkness shifting like smoke that refused to disperse. Two pale eyes emerged in that black void, unblinking and curious, watching Ethan with a cold hunger. A freezing breath swept across his cheek, the same sensation as before, but stronger now as if the thing was closer. Ethan sprinted back toward the lobby, but the lodge twisted around him as if rearranging its own corridors to trap him deeper inside. The walls stretched and curved, closing and then widening, making him feel like he was inside a living throat slowly swallowing him. Shadows along the floor lengthened into claw-shaped silhouettes reaching toward his running feet. He burst into another room, but this time the rocking chair wasn't empty. The blurred-faced woman was sitting in it, dripping water onto the wooden floor like melted wax. Her head rose slowly, her neck cracking unnaturally, revealing dark hollow sockets where eyes should be, and from her cracked lips leaked a muddy mixture of soil and blood. She stood without her legs moving, gliding toward him with a slithering hiss that came from everywhere and nowhere. Ethan stumbled back into the hallway, slamming the door, but the hiss seeped through the walls like smoke, crawling into his ears. He could feel something brushing his ankles, something invisible but undeniably real, curling around him like fingers testing the warmth of a living body. He shoved himself away, running with blind desperation and claws of panic scraping his throat. He crashed into the lobby again, but this time the guest book wasn't blank. It was open to today's date, with Ethan's name already written in fresh ink. His hand shook violently, and the pen on the desk began to move by itself, scratching symbols on the next line like something was signing beneath him. The lights went out completely, plunging the lodge into absolute darkness. In the pitch black, the sound of dozens of rocking chairs creaking echoed through the building. Though Ethan knew there had only been one, he heard footsteps pacing in circles near him, slow, deliberate, as if deciding the best moment to touch him. something icy wrapped around his wrist like a hand, made of water and bone. The lights flickered back on for a single second, and Ethan saw the woman again standing inches from his face, her blurred features twisting into a horrific smile that folded wrong like wet paper tearing. Her mouth opened impossibly wide, stretching into a dark void as if she wanted to swallow the light itself. Ethan screamed, but the sound didn't escape, sinking into her open maw like it was being eaten. The lights went out again, and all he could hear was the frantic scribbling of the guestbook pen, writing faster and faster like someone possessed. Ethan scrambled blindly, slamming into furniture and walls as whispers multiplied around him. Hundreds of voices chanting in tones too low to be human. His breath hitched as the air became thick, pressing on his lungs like he was being buried alive. Somehow he found the front door, yanking at it with trembling hands. But the wood felt warm alive, even like skin stretched over a frame. The whispers rose into violent shrieks, and the door suddenly flung open, throwing Ethan out into the wet gravel as if the lodge itself rejected him. He crawled into the storm, coughing water and mud, not daring to look back even though he felt eyes burning into his spine. When morning came, Ethan limped to the nearby town, telling people breathlessly that something was wrong with Silent Pine Lodge. Locals exchanged uneasy glances before one finally told him the lodge had burned down years ago and the land had been abandoned ever since. Ethan insisted he had stayed inside it, but their horrified expressions told him that wasn't possible. Determined to prove he wasn't hallucinating, Ethan returned with officers. But only ruins remained: a charred foundation, collapsed beams, and melted metal framing. Yet something terrifying caught his eye. Lying in the ashes was the exact photograph. He had seen the woman in the rocking chair, only now the blurred face was clear and staring directly at him. Behind her in the picture stood Ethan himself, dripping wet, head lowered as if he didn't know he was being photographed. The officer called out to him, but Ethan couldn't answer, because the air in his lungs froze the moment he noticed the final detail. At the bottom of the burned guest book, half buried in soot, was a new entry written in fresh black ink: Ethan Ward, checked in forever. And from the corner of the debris, a rocking chair creaked softly, though no wind was blowing, and Ethan felt a cold hand rest on his back as the world dimmed to darkness.
You survived this time, but the terror still follows you until the darkness returns.